Hey, hey, hey. Oh, I knew I forgot something. As soon as I pop on, I realized. Well, hello everyone. We're back. I don't have tea today. I just didn't feel like it, which, you know, is my goddamn right, all right? I'm allowed, all right? Sometimes I don't have to have tea all the time. I'm just messing around. Give me one second. I forgot to. We're still learning around here, and one of the issues I've had is trying to figure out when, or not figure out when, but like I have to manually change the URL for chat on OBS every time. I'm guessing this is why so many streamers have their own websites, so they can just connect their own website chat. Yeah, see, here we go. It should be, um, uh, I believe everything is all set up. All right, cool. Yeah, because like that is annoying. OBS weirdly doesn't have a mechanism by which you can put the chat that it has in the software onto as like a source that you can look at. I wonder if I can like do a window capture of OBS or of OBS and just put the live chat from there. I'll fiddle with that later. I'm just like wondering about the technicals live on stream. You get to see the thought process. But I figured today, you know what? I don't want to do, I don't want to go for terribly long. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll do some PragerU. You know, that seems like something we can come back to. I just doing a quick look at my. See, I gotta fix my browser properties. Man, this is uh, doing a quick look at my watch later for stuff that we wanted to go over. I guess we have stuff to come back to. I don't want to come back to this. We can be done with that. So we have some like debate reviews we can go to on another day. I don't think I want to, but apparently I've got a PragerU video about whether a flat tax would be more fair on the docket. So we'll get into that. As I say, I'll give people a moment to file in. I know this is from 6 years ago, but the thing is like these wacky ideas don't really go away, and people do watch these. So we'll do a couple of these, and we'll chill out. We'll hang. As I say, no tea today. All right, PragerU. What do we got?
The American Revolution started as a tax revolt over a single tax on tea.
Which is kind of
Now
funny when you
look at
think
us.
about it, but like it was more like synecdoche for another issue, right? The whole point was even the slogan that everyone learns about the American Revolution is no taxation without representation. The problem was more ideological than all that. The gray chat box is covering the video. Oh, right, because I moved it. I forgot. I guess that's kind of an issue. All right, we'll put it back over here. Uh, okay. We'll put the chat back over. Thanks, Peachy Keen. Yeah, I was hoping that wouldn't be much of an issue, but my concern was where the chat is now. It's the recommended videos are might make it hard to read the chat on top of them, which is why I moved it. I don't know. I got to figure out how to where to put the chat and how best to do it. Maybe I'll like put a maybe I can like I didn't like the full white background. Maybe I can put like uh have like a black box behind it or something like that, or maybe another color. I don't know. We'll mess with that another time. Oh, I forgot to mention I'm possibly not going to stream tomorrow. Just stuff going on. I just got plans. So, and maybe that's how I'll go forward because I was talking about maybe trimming down how much I stream. Maybe I'll do like Monday through Thursday. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, like yes, technically an inciting factor for the Boston Tea Party, as it were, was the tea tax. But of course, the complaint was no taxation without representation. I think the tax they were less concerned about than the representation and the ability to decide the governance of their lives, including that tax. Because it's not like the United States doesn't tax people after even the people who were there for the Tea Party were in favor of taxes, but the point was they weren't being represented. They didn't have a say in their own governance. It was an ideological issue. So like this is I feel like this misrepresentation is to be like, see, tax is bad, but we'll see.
It seems like everything we do is taxed. The system behind
And
these
there are
taxes
reasons for these
is a
taxes, by the way.
bureaucratic monstrosity, a dead weight on the economy.
All right, Steve
And it,
Forbes. Oh, oh, literally. I wonder if that name is a coincidence. Let's look. I've get. Is this like the Forbes guy? All right, Steve Forbes, editor in chief of Forbes Business Magazine. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Oh, oh man. Uh, he went to Princeton. Like, oh, he's campaigned for president. He's oh, former Reagan appointee. Hmm. All right. Yeah, unsurprising. Well, let's get into it.
erodes our trust in the government that's taxing us. If you have enough lawyers, lobbyists, and loopholes at your disposal, maybe you can game the system.
It's
That's fine
so funny that he's saying this of all people. It's like you're the one in favor of this type of stuff. But we'll
for big corporations and wealthy individuals. But what about the small business owner or the middle class taxpayer? He just has to shut up and pay up. Nothing illustrates the disaster that our tax system has become than the mother of all taxes, the federal income tax code.
Okay, I gotta like preempt a little of this because already there's a lot of misinformation that you need to like understand the conclusion, understand why this is utilizing what seems to be like populist rhetoric to actually oppose like it seems like he's in favor of the working of like the small guy, the little guy, but ultimately this is beneficial for the upper echelon. If you have a flat tax, everyone pays the same amount proportional to how much you have, the that you actually pay more if you're poor than if you're rich. Now I'm not sure if he's suggesting a flat percentage or a flat value. We'll get to each entire. This is exactly the kind of thing that he's talking about. Of like big businesses can game the system with enough lobbyists. He's doing that right now. This is literally he's on a platform funded by oil billionaires trying to convince people that they should pay less in taxes or should be charged less in taxes. Most of the time, a huge amount of the time, large businesses don't pay the taxes that they're supposed to pay, or like there are quote unquote loopholes or means by which they can circumnavigate the amount of taxes that they're supposed to pay. The whole premise seems wild to me. Well, so it's like it's weirdly represented. What's his name? The brain surgeon who ran for president in 2016 on the Republican ticket, and then like Trump made his Secretary of Housing and Urban Development because he was black. I forget his name. He was suggesting a flat tax based on like the Christian concept of tithing. This is a thing that comes up every now. Wealthy people comprise the vast majority of the federal income tax it collects. So if the government wants the same amount of money, it has to take less from wealthier. I'm not sure I understand. So that might be it might be the case that the majority of the flat value comes from the wealthy, but that's obvious, right? If you take if you take like for example 10% of everyone's wages or everyone's earnings, then yes, the majority of the money will come from the wealthy because they have the majority of money. But like I don't know. No. So like a lot of the problem, yeah, I disagree strongly, Peachy Keen. A lot of the problem is that the people at the top don't pay the equivalent of what they receive, basically. Um, and a lot of these companies don't pay enough. It's one of those like there's a lot of stuff to get into. For example, Amazon doesn't pay taxes. They like have a scheme by which they have like losses pending. They like accrue debt at the same rate that they like gain money or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but basically it works out where like how like the amount they pay in taxes is actually null. Um, Hold on, let's look it up if I can spell. The higher ticket are above 30%. Yeah. So here, Amazon's effective federal income tax was 6.1%. Oh, here's the effective rate. Like Amazon, 6.1%. This is a far cry shy of the 30% that you were talking about. So flags somewhere between those two. Well, no, because like, and then you also have to remember what the effect of like if you put a flat tax between what the highest income brackets are supposed to pay and what the like middle or lower ones are supposed to pay, you'll end up just having less in federal revenue, which means you have to cut social services on top of all this. But uh, but this, well, I know, but like business, the reason why I'm pointing out business taxes and not income tax is because private income taxes are private. This is why Trump was expected to release his tax returns and not they were publicly accessible because they're not normally accessible to the public. You're a private person's income taxes. That's not something that you can just like go petition the government to find out about. But business taxes are available because they have to make disclosure statements to their shareholders so that like if for transparency reasons because like they're partial owners, these are accessible, that's why. But I mean, even if you look at like Trump's tax return, there was a whole big fiasco of he was paying like he was claiming a loss from 30 years ago so that he didn't have to pay taxes, so he was paying like $600 in taxes a year for a guy whose net worth is in the hundreds of millions, if not. I don't think he's actually a billionaire, but like, um, and he's just an example because we like know. So okay, so never mind. He's worth 2.5 billion. Um, uh, but then we can look at his tax return. Um, we'll see if I can find it quickly. But in his tax returns, like questionable tax, like or how, let's just see if how much does Trump pay in taxes? Like now that his income taxes have been his tax returns have been released, which by the way, this is like the first instance where in like 50 years where they didn't want it. So like by the here he paid $0 in 2020. His highest effective tax rate was 4.1%. Like this isn't unique to businesses. This is exactly the thing that this guy was talking about in the video, where you can, with the right lobbyists and people in power, and remember, a lot of the people in power are wealthy, so they're enacting laws for their own benefit, and they're having huge contributions to their campaigns from even more wealthy donors to get their interests there, and then you by this means exactly the thing he's talking about. These people are just not paying very much. And my guess is the flat tax this guy wants isn't like a 30% flat tax. It's going to be like a 10% flat tax. Sorry if I'm not being clear. This video has a wild premise that seems to require increasing income tax for lower and decreasing for upper to be the same as percent fair. We'll see what his like. I don't think we're going to get a number. That's going to be what's really difficult here. I don't think we're going to get a number from this guy as to what the value should be. People like sometimes. So I think Ben Carson, that was the candidate I was talking about before. If I remember right, Ben Carson was suggesting a 10% flat tax because that's the Christian idea of tithe is it's 10%. 10% is significantly lower than I think all income tax brackets. So like, oh, that sounds really nice to the person who doesn't think beyond the immediate impact on themselves of like, oh, I pay less in taxes, isn't that good? Except now your hospitals are underfunded, your schools are underfunded, and on top of that, huge services are underfunded because now the high percent that the rich were supposed to pay isn't high anymore, and now the value they get away with paying is even lower than all that. The problem is that the wealthy don't pay enough, not that they pay too much.
This tax alone, with all its attendant rulings and interpretations, is estimated to be about 10 million words and rising. Several years ago.
By the way, the complexity there is in large part due to the exact lobbying he's talking about, and he probably wouldn't take issue with things like companies like TurboTax lobbying for complexity. There's a lot of other countries you don't have to do your own tax return. The government knows how much you owe. The government knows how much you owe here. They'll like as part of their processes will either bill you or like send you back whatever extra because they know that information is available. The reason why it's not like that here is in part due to companies like TurboTax lobbying the government to not have them do that, which means that they will require the services of accountants because it's so complicated that you are unlikely to be able to understand it yourself. Uh, and so like the exact thing, like this complaint is the result of these large companies, like what he's complaining about, and like you're not really solving that problem. You're just doing what these large companies want, which is making them pay less. Um, he makes a good point, but his conclusion from the point is going to be nonsense. It's not this should be less complicated or the government should take care of it for us. It's going to be like, let's throw it out. Let's just let the rich pay less.
Money Magazine took a
Like the
hypothetical.
rich have already taken giant dumps on the system. Let's just get rid of the whole thing. This is a thing that right wingers do all the time. Actually, well, there will be proposals for like, oh, we should teach philosophy in schools as an example, and they'll like gut the shit out of the proposal, make sure it's ineffective, and then when it is, be like, see, we shouldn't have done it in the first place. Um, I thought it was just because it was designed by bureaucrats. Didn't know the lobby was from tax companies. So it's combinations of stuff. Like um, but a lot of if I remember right, John Oliver has a really good segment about tax returns and the IRS, and like, yeah, part of why these things are so complicated is due to lobbying, but this is part of how a bureaucracy works in a environment where wealth is power. When we can buy the sway of politicians, and I don't mean that in the sense of like politicians accept money and then therefore are swayed. It's more the politicians who are in agreement with what wealthy donors want are going to get the support to run a campaign in a way that people who are at odds will have difficulty with. It's not conspiratorial. It's just a matter of like, well, like the Koch brothers are going to fund PragerU, not a socialist kind of thing.
Family's finances and gave the numbers to 46 tax preparers. 46 different estimates came back. In some cases, those differences ran into the thousands of dollars of what the family owed. This from experts.
Now, of course, like a real easy solution to this is better fund the IRS and have the government do it for us like it happens in other countries. But he doesn't want that. He doesn't want that, right? He still wants accountants to be like you have to like go find an accountant and go pay TurboTax or whatever, or H&R Block or whatever, or whoever else. What he wants, why, like, no, notice the problem he has and the solution he's going to offer, which he's taking his time getting to, but like his solution is therefore the rich should pay less.
Experts are considered to be the best in the business. But the tax.
By the way, a flat tax wouldn't solve this problem. A flat tax, you'd say like, oh, 10% of your, but like, what about tax write-offs, which there still should be? There are other kinds of taxes other than income tax. The complexity would not go away. The only difference is the value would be reduced for the wealthy.
Themselves are only part of the cost of this toxic code. There's also the cost of compliance, the time, money, and effort it takes for Americans to prepare their taxes.
But he doesn't want to solve that
George
problem.
Mason University study
He wants to
puts the annual
solve a
cost
different
of compliance as high as $378 billion, and the total annual economic cost, including work hours, at more than $600 billion.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Again, these are annual costs, as in every year.
I don't. These numbers might not be right, but I'm inclined to believe them because they don't actually support what he's saying. So like, it doesn't really matter, you know.
A lot of money that could be used in more productive ways, creating new products, new services, new medical devices.
Notice that like his proposal of like what could be done with the money isn't like you can pay your rent, because obviously it's not the ultimate proposal is not going to be good for people for whom like the amount they pay in taxes is going to make it could make it hard for them to pay rent. That like he doesn't really care about that part. Hey, Galit.
New cures for diseases. Clearly, the time has come to drive a stake through the heart of this tax monster. So what should be done? Like most things, the best solution is the most simple.
That's often not true, actually. Most good solutions are actually not that simple, but okay, sure.
A single flat tax with no deductions.
No deductions. That's okay. Yeah, that's another way where like
except for a deduction for each adult and for each child. Fill out a sheet of paper or key in a few numbers on your computer and you're done.
Remember where we're saying of like all these people who are employed and all this stuff. He doesn't want to get rid of the system where you need to do this, and people will probably still be hired to file taxes because this, as simple as he makes it sound, there's no way it's going to be as simple as like, oh, you just write in a piece of paper or whatever. Like, he doesn't want to solve that problem. He just wants to reduce, like, well, he hasn't given a number yet. He's not going to, I don't think, but
This one change
just make
would not
rich
only
people
make
pay
every
less.
citizen's life easier, would also transform government, our economy, and our society
Well, it is true it would transform things, but
by
probably not for the
ending the
better.
complexity that gives bureaucrats and politicians so much power.
So that doesn't even by his logic, that doesn't make sense, right? In what way does it does taxes are complicated equate to this politician has power? Where's the through line there? At worst, it's difficult and annoying, but it doesn't give like some senator power or some bureaucrat power that things are really complex. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It gives private accounting companies power, as we just discussed a second ago. Uh, and like this kind of thing is like another hallmark of propaganda of like this doesn't he didn't even come close to justifying this, but we're gonna act like, but it's to point you as like, oh, you hate politicians and bureaucrats, don't you? I say that this thing is good for them, so shouldn't you be against it?
They have power because they're the ones who dole out the tax favors.
Well,
It wasn't always
kind of like also companies like the ones that you okay, you're a Reaganite. I don't know, like you believed in trickle down. Okay, whatever.
this way. There was a time when corporations primarily lobbied Washington to keep government out of their businesses.
They still do, by the way. That is what like tax loopholes are kind of about. It's to get the government out of their pockets, as it were, which is some nonsense. And they still fight for deregulation, like the Koch brothers do, and that's kind of a problem. These are actually the same thing. I guess he's in favor of this, but like that, it's kind of a problem that happens,
That has changed.
and that's the same
In the
thing.
words of the Atlantic, the evolution of business lobbying from a sparse reactive force into a ubiquitous and increasingly proactive one is among the most important transformations in American politics over the last 40 years.
So that's really interesting because this has absolutely nothing to do with uh, business lobbying for tax purposes, right? This lobbying could be for any number of reasons, including but not limited to the kind of lobbying he seems okay with, or to stay out of their business or whatever. Um, that's what a lot of lobbying is done for. Uh, but he's acting like it's for tax reasons. This is
This
so
favor
dishonest.
seeking
Well, I guess
is
it's
centered on
PragerU. We
getting
should expect
special
it.
treatment and tax breaks. A flat tax will help us begin to scale back that special interest loving, crony capitalist big government that
So oh my god, all the loaded terms. This is kind of the equivalent of like, look, corporations have been basically what he's saying is corporations have been lobbying to get exemptions from the taxes that they're supposed to pay, and that's a problem. So in exchange, we should just not ask them to pay those taxes in the first place. That will solve the problem of them lobbying for exceptions. Like, but the problem with the exceptions is that they're not paying enough. Not that there are exceptions, not that like they're creating these exceptions that other people don't get. They shouldn't be getting like, or I guess it is. How do I put this? It's not that they're making efforts towards paying less. It's that they're paying less. So just being like, well, now they don't have to work for it, doesn't solve anything.
we all
It makes
complain
it worse.
about. Everyone would pay less. Not only
Everyone would pay less. See, right there. But when you pay less, you pay like I don't know, maybe $1,000 off. I'm just putting a number out. When Amazon pays less, they pay millions and millions of dollars less. They already don't pay much, but like, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Every how much whether people would pay less or more is really hard to say, given that we don't have a number here. But I agree, a lot of people would pay more, in part because a lot of the people who percentage-wise benefit the most from deductions are people who pay the very least in taxes. So if you say, okay, we're making this flat tax at a value, and you have no deductions, the poor pay more than they used to, and the rich pay less. which is of course what he wants.
only in taxes.
But he's also saying you pay less because it's appealing to that initial gut of like, I don't want to lose money. Tax is bad. If I pay less, it's good. Even though it's often not. I had a friend. I loved this thing. A friend of mine said once, where someone was like, they were talking about taxes. He's like, oh, I love taxes. I love when there are working roads and hospitals and schools. That's actually cool for me. I like that. And that's something we don't really think about a lot. We think of, this is it's kind of a it's something ANCAPs do all the time also, of just we assume that the things around us will remain the same irrespective of our actions. This is this it's also something I noticed from Republicans. There's a lot of like uh personal responsibility, but there's no such thing as causality. Yeah, the top 1% pay like something like 40% of total income tax. Not everyone else would have to share that burden. Yeah, we just wouldn't. There wouldn't be enough money for social services. Which, of course, this guy's a Reaganite. He doesn't want social services. People like that were like, nah, fuck the poor, even though they're the ones who make the rich rich. Um, this would just be exceptionally bad for everyone but the super wealthy. If the tax bracket is 30%, then the flat amount that gets the same rate would be 28% for everybody. Um, and remember, these tax brackets are like it's not even that cut and dry because like even if the top bracket is 40% or whatever, that mean but they're only paying 40% on income above some value. Their effective tax rate is closer to like 30 something percent. Uh, there's a lot that goes into it. It's complicated, overly complicated, but sometimes but often for reasons. It's kind of the same way where people like this will complain about property taxes, which yeah, it's a little shitty that if you've paid off a house and that's just the house you live in, that you might not be able to have enough money to keep that a place to live. That sucks, and that's something that we need to do something about. But the flip side is we don't want people who are able to buy up huge amounts of property, like billionaires or companies that who buy large amounts of land, to be able to sit on that as landed gentry, right? It's the same kind of thing of like these taxes and this complexity exists for a reason, but we're going to ignore that so we can do this propaganda.
Also in compliance. Investment and job creation would skyrocket.
This is some trickle down economic shit, as has been definitively shown by the intervening 35 years. Trickle down economics does not work.
We'd experience a recovery that would grow the tax base and
it wouldn't grow the tax base. It would shrink the tax base, right? Because like there's no way you would want that flat percentage to be the tax bracket that the wealthy are expected to pay, right? Like there's no way you want everyone to pay 40% in taxes. You're a Republican, you know? You're also saying everyone would pay less. For everyone to pay less, they're how actually even by his logic, everyone pays less, but we have more in the tax base. The tax base grows even though everyone's paying less. Figure that out for me.
Ultimately generate more revenue for government.
More revenue. How do you have more revenue? Oh, he's just. Oh, okay. I know why he's gonna. I think he's gonna say the reason why it's more revenue for the government is because look, that $600 billion number he pulled out of his ass earlier is no longer being paid. It's not being paid by the government. It's being paid by people, often by corporations who have to spend the most money for accounting. And by the way, corporations would still have to pay tons and tons of money for accounting because there's a lot of accounting that goes into running a large business that has absolutely nothing to do with the tax code. You just need to have an account of where all of your assets are and like what's being spent on what. Like that money is still spent.
Go into this in much greater detail in
Let
my
me show
book,
my book.
Reviving America. But here in essence is how
I'm glad you've heard my propaganda.
Everyone,
here's my book.
Individuals and corporations pays a 17% flat rate.
17%. Holy shit. Like, there's no... Hold on, let's look. Alright. Okay, so here are the income tax brackets for federal income tax rates. 17% would be the third lowest tax bracket. So who's paying less? People who are middle class and above. Who's paying more? Everyone who's lower class. And as has been acknowledged, the majority of the flat value, the majority of the actual dollars are paid from people who make of who are in the higher tax brackets because they have the most dollars, right? So definitely less money is taken in by the government, but somehow more revenue. All right, we can just say things. It's PragerU. We can just lie. It's fine. Um, and the poorer pay less, so that the people who show up in this stupid magazine don't have to work to get around how much they don't have to do the work to pay this little. They can just pay that little. And let's look at like where the breakdown is. 40 $41,000 a year. We'll say $42,000 a year is where you get the 12% bracket. By the way, remember, this is not your effective tax rate because you pay 10% of the money up to 10,000 and then 12% on the money up from 10,000 to 42,000. If I remember what's hold on, I'll look this up. Uh mean net income US. Okay, the mean income for an American citizen is $71,000 a year. That sounds high, actually. Um, According to U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median weekly income, including overtime commission for full-time workers. Oh, okay. This is not included. Okay, was okay. If that persists for weird. So I didn't go with median because it gets thrown off by billionaires. But I was gonna. We can look for that next. Um, we can look for that as well. All right, 69, nice, $1,000 a year. So, uh, of a household income, okay. Um, okay. Sure. With most people landing at, okay, yeah, sure. So we'll, oh, that's really interesting. 6% make less than 10,000 a year, percentage of household, whereas fewer than that make the next bracket. It's like it's just an interesting observation. This is like people talk about like welfare traps or whatever. Like this is kind of showing it. But we'll go with the fine. We'll go with the medium. So like about $70,000 a year. At $70,000 a year, you would be expected to pay. You would be in the 22% bracket, but of course your effective tax rate would be different than that. Uh, yeah, it'd be. Oh, God, I don't want to do the math, but um, yeah. So here, it would be nine. Okay, we can. All right, we'll do math. So you're already paying. So if you were making the mean $70,000 a year, oh, never mind. Wait, what the hell? Oh, this is filing jointly. Never mind. Okay, we can just use this number. So 22% of the amount above 41 or 42,000. We're gonna estimate. So like 42,000 times 0.22. So you'd pay plus 4,800. And let me know if I did something stupid in my math here. Um, all right, you'd pay about $14,000 a year using very basic math. But if you made 70,000 times 0.17, what was the other number? It was 14,000. So you pay a little less if you make the median, but only a little less. And if you make less than that, you're paying significantly more, especially if you're below $41,000 a year. So again, his proposal is that the rich shouldn't have to work to pay less in taxes. They should just get to pay less in taxes. This should be shored up by the poor, who will now also, remember, no longer have access to deductions, except for children apparently. Also, poor people are less likely to be married, which means that you're filing independently as opposed to as a couple, and when you file jointly, you end up paying less in taxes. Um, I don't know if that's the kind of deduction he wants to get rid of, but like, yeah, this would just be exceptionally bad for the poor, good for the rich, and terrible for the country.
This single rate is absolutely critical.
I
Whenever
wonder
we
where he
have two
got
or
that
more
number.
tax rates, they're like rabbits. They breed. We saw that with the 1986 tax reforms, which consisted of two rates. They've since multiplied into the 7 we have today. Well,
I
you might
wonder
argue, this
if there are
sounds great for the
reasons for
rich and
that.
even the middle class. But what about the poor?
You're right.
17% is a big burden.
He's
That's
gonna
why
say,
under this
oh,
plan, a family of 4 who makes less than $52,800 would pay no income tax.
wait, a family of four? Why a family of four? Like that does sound like kind of cool, but like, why a family of four? I think we were just looking at uh by family. Didn't we see like by household? Uh, the average household is significantly more than that. So it'd be pretty low to have a family. But remember, family of four with two kids. I wonder if that's just like, oh, if you're not married and if you don't have two kids, fuck you. This is a very weird caveat. Why not just like if you make less than that? But that's also like the majority, the the median for a household is much more than that. So yes, you're still paying more, but uh, you're still paying more if you're between this 52,000 number and the median. Well, actually, I guess we didn't do the math for the median. I don't know how it is for because when you file jointly, it's different.
Tax. That's
Maybe
double the
he wouldn't want it to be different if you file jointly, in which case these two individuals would be making about $50,000 a year, in which case they are paying more. So no, yep, you're still paying more.
current federal poverty level. This will let people at low income levels keep more of their money. And for those who think the rich should pay more, they will.
They won't.
Prior to the passage of the tax cuts that President Ronald Reagan pushed through Congress in 1981, the top 1% of American earners accounted for nearly 18% of federal personal income tax revenue.
That
By
has nothing to do with
1988,
anything.
that same group accounted for nearly 28%,
That
an increase.
so so that sounds like, look, they've paid more. What that actually means, at least in my guess, we're not going to find like he's not going to cite anything, so I'm not going to be able to access why that would be. But if the 1% has more money, then percentage wise they will pay more taxes. Like if the Reagan years made the rich richer, so when they paid their proportion of taxes, they had to pay more. But you're saying we should cut that number and saying like citing how does this even prove that they will pay more?
Of
What the
10
hell?
percentage points in only 7 years.
Yeah,
By eliminating loopholes and requiring everyone to pay their fair share, the flat tax offers
so notice he has proposed only that loopholes won't exist, not anything that will prevent them from existing. Just like we're just going to start here, and then inevitably, and then we'll just assume that corporations won't do the thing they've been doing forever, which is lobby, or I guess the last 40 years at least. They're not going to do what they've been doing, which is lobby for lower rates or for exemptions or whatever else. There's no like what proposal is here. I mean, maybe in his book, I doubt it. Like to prevent that from happening. You're gonna say like it has to like this is codified and can never be changed. That's not how our laws work. You know, you need you need an amendment for that, and that can still be overturned. You know, like there's no reason to think that this would be sacrosanct.
a model of tax fairness.
It's
More than
not
40
really that
countries
fair.
and jurisdictions have enacted the flat tax. When all the facts are considered,
Curious about that. Notice he just says that they've adopted it. Not like it's been a good thing or whatever, but 40 countries that have done it. Oh yeah, that's great. Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Bolivia, Russia. Yeah, countries that are doing real great right now. Can you go away? Um do not have well developed social sectors. Interesting. Hungary and Romania have flat taxes. Lithuania and Georgia. Like these aren't these aren't countries that these aren't countries that are doing exceptionally well. I guess I'll put it that way. But he just says that they have a flat tax. Not that it's been good, but he just wants you to say like, look, it's happened. I don't know.
The real question is not whether America should implement this vital reform, but what are we waiting for?
Oh, we're waiting for that to be a good idea, which it isn't. That's you're right. It's not the question is whether we should. The answer is no, we shouldn't. That's stupid. Uh, and
It's
you're
time
stupid.
for another tax revolution. I'm Steve Forbes for Prager University.
Yeah. So obvious nonsense. Whew. Whew. All right. What do you say? We do another one? Uh, I guess they got a playlist somewhere. Where are their 5 minute videos? All right. Where are there like those? They had used to have like a lot of videos like that one. All right, here we got to that section. Uh, Understanding Nixon. Ooh. Oh God, radical Islam and what the woke have in common. God, there's no way this isn't spicy.
There were many American heroes on 9/11, but the greatest were the passengers and crew of Flight 93. Not only did they avert what Al Qaeda planned, a direct hit on the White House, but they also embodied Patrick Henry's credo: give me liberty or give me death. Do those words still have a meaning in America today? For
Yeah.
2 decades, I've spoken out against.
Ayan Hersili. Oh, I know this person. I know this name. I definitely come across her during debates. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember this person. So she has had like a really interesting life, as I recall. Like she was born in Mogadishu, Somalia. She like fled and like lived in the Netherlands, and then she's been like an elected representative, and I think maybe not multiple countries, but I think in the Netherlands as well. She's been pretty outspoken. I didn't realize that she was so the Labor Party and the people. I didn't realize that she would be politically affiliated with PragerU. That sounds kind of wild. Um, I would look more into her. She's had a very interesting life. I don't remember very much of it, but I do remember it was very impressive.
Those strands of Islam that gave rise to Al Qaeda.
Oh, right, right, right. That's like she's hugely against Islam. Right, that was the other big thing. Um, in some coming from Somalia, like that's why she had to flee, if I remember right. Was like Islamic extremists or something like that. Now remember, like Somalia is not doing great in a lot of ways. The revolutionaries or these people that were like or these extremists or whatever were Muslims in a way happenstance, but like obviously we've gone over how I think like religion justifies a lot of like really awful stuff, and like this happened to be the thing she encountered. But uh oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Female genital mutilation, yeah. um like that's her big bugaboo. Okay, that's why she's here for this. Okay, it's still a little weird that she would affiliate herself with PragerU, um but yeah, when it's just like anti-Islamic stuff, I get why she's
In
here
this
now.
fight
Okay.
for freedom, I have faced many death threats. Yet, I have always consoled myself that in the US, freedom of conscience and expression were paramount values. It was partly for this reason that I moved here and became a citizen in 2013. It never occurred to me that free speech would come under threat in my newly adopted country. In
It's
2014,
always been
I was
under threat.
invited to receive an honorary degree at Brandeis University and then ungraciously disinvited. Even when I first
So here we are again. You were invited and then disinvited. That is not an attack on free speech. It's actually wild to me that she's like on board for arguing that it is. Um that's not an attack on free speech. Brandeis is not required is under no obligation to have you speak at their campus. I think that's what she was saying, right? She was invited to receive an honorary degree. Okay, they're not required to give you an honorary degree. In what sense are they? That and that they changed their mind due to the opinions of others using their rights to speak, and they swayed Brandeis University to disinvite you. That's everyone engaging in their right to free speech. For this to be an attack on free speech, you would have to make illegal the ability to disinvite someone, or even to not invite someone in the first place, right? Like if you are entitled to that invitation, then that you hadn't then any instance where you're not invited is a violation of your free speech, right? No, it's not. They don't have to, they're not required in any way to host you.
Encountered what has come to be known as cancel culture, I didn't fret too much. I was inclined to dismiss the alliance of campus leftists and Islamists as a lunatic fringe.
Already conflating these two groups. These are not even remotely similar groups.
They are not the fringe anymore. Many on the left, academia, the media, and now even
Wow, she's not even gonna try to. Wow, I expected more from her. She's not even gonna try to justify that that's an attack on free speech. That I was disinvited from somewhere. The horror.
the
It's so
corporate
stupid.
world have inculcated in a generation of students an ideology that has much more in common with the intolerant doctrines of a religious cult than with the
Oh
secular
yeah, I mean
political
that's
thought.
true if you're incredibly stupid. Yeah, that is true if you don't understand nuance whatsoever. Yeah,
I
that's fair.
studied at Holland's Leiden University. In the debates after 9/11, many people sought materialist explanations for the attacks. The jihadis lacked educational and employment opportunities. They were angry at American foreign policy in the Middle East, and so on.
And we're just gonna dismiss those out of hand like those impossible. This is a thing that happens a lot, in particular with Islamophobia, where you'll roll the explanation. No explanation is satisfactory except religion, and as soon as you hear religion as an explanation, you stop looking. You stop appraising other options. There's a confluence of things, including but not limited to both of the ideas listed here, and also that there's an extremely violent sect of Islam in these parts of the world. Is that a coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But like I'll note that there is not a problem of terrorism with the over 3 million Muslims that live in America. That's just not an issue, and it makes it clear that there's more to it than they're Muslim, therefore they're deranged. That's not like that. That's where you see the bigotry outright. But when you just say like when you say it like this, it seems less obvious, even though it's the same claim.
I argued that none of these could explain the motivations of the plotters and hijackers, all of whom
Okay,
in
sure they could. Wait, why couldn't they? I mean, I know you say you argued it and you've said it elsewhere, but like, yeah, it could. But it's also, I would, it's possibly insufficient. Obviously, they were motivated in part by their religious beliefs, uh, but those are contributing factors to why they found beliefs like that appealing.
any case came from middle class and upper class homes. Their goal was religious and political to denounce.
So, wait, hold on. It's not true that they had problems with Americans' foreign policy because their motivations were religious and political? What do you think that means? Oh my god.
Arab governments as corrupt and their Western allies as infidels, and ultimately to overthrow the existing order in the Middle East and establish a caliphate.
Yeah, they did what a lot of people on the right do. They see that there are problems and they say we need like racial or religious purity and dictatorship. This is not unique to Islam, but it is a problem in areas of the world where right-wing sentiments are more stoked, like in the Middle East and also like at PragerU.
American policymakers preferred the materialist explanations as they implied actions to solve the
Well,
problem.
yeah, what do you do? Like, okay, let's like assume you're right. Nah, it's just that like Muslims are violent. That's inherently, it's like in their blood or whatever. Now what do? You want just want to like glass the Middle East? Like, no, maybe you need to operate in terms that are actionable and not just on your bigotry.
Invasion, regime change, democratization. It was unpopular to
Now those are bad solutions to these materialist explanations, but they are at the very least solutions that you don't have when you just go, they're Muslims, therefore they want to blow shit up.
Suggests that the terrorists might have unshakable convictions having nothing to do with material consideration.
Yeah, those individuals. Yeah, so like this is where we get into this weird thing of like, yes, you're not going to convince the people who did 9/11 that their convictions are unreasonable. But what you can do is foster an environment where more people like that don't come into being with things like education and economic opportunity. When people don't see their governments being when their governments aren't incredibly corrupt and selling off anything they can to the United States, and like if you're not getting invaded constantly, people tend not to have these issues. You'll notice that there are countries like, and again, like there are millions of Muslim people in the United States that don't have these unshakable convictions. It seems like religion isn't the defining factor there, but also countries that don't have these economic problems, these imperialist problems, tend not to have people have such radical groups trying to use terrorism for political change. This seems so common in politics to lump people in groups and then make assumptions but go through set suit and agenda. Yeah, and like for her in particular, she has like very specific trauma related to Islam, which like I get, but this is where like that trauma is being expressed as bigotry, and it's a problem. You're not proposing solutions. You're just like, fuck them. You can't do anything about it. What can you do? Like the only real solution, like how much can you say? They have unshakable convictions, and these materialist explanations aren't the thing, and it's just that they're Muslim. Before someone says, so maybe kill them all. Like what else could you suggest as a solution to this? I mean, some people say like, oh, a Muslim ban or whatever, but like, no, that doesn't work at all. That's why I stay away from it. Like, but it doesn't have to be like this. That's the thing, Peachy Keen, and like this is part of why I try to do what I do. Is that like politics needs the people who aren't doing that absurdity. It's not a necessity of political thought to demonize, vilify, and attempt to eradicate. You can instead approach the issues in a way where you try to solve them and cause greater good in the world, as opposed to being like, fuck them, like they're all just violent or whatever.
2 decades later, we see a similar dynamic, only this time it's within America's borders.
Oh yeah,
Naive
that's true in that it's not at all, like not even a little. But yeah, otherwise, other than being not at all like that, it is exactly like that. You're right.
observers explain the Black Lives Matter protests and riots of
This is, oh my god, I just realized this is just from a year ago. She's against the Black Lives Matter protest? What the fuck is wrong with you? Holy shit. I'm sorry. I noticed, like, I know that like I'm getting a lot more like upset at her than I was at the last video, and that's because I expected more from her. I've heard her speak before, and I don't remember. It's been a long time, so I don't remember how it was, but I remember just being like, wow, okay, like this person has a lot of really interesting ideas, and like she's really smart or whatever. This is absolutely nonsense. I just expected more from her, I guess. Like, oh my
2020
god.
in terms of blacks' material disadvantages. These are real, as are the
Oh, oh, well, okay. I'm glad she's like in a PragerU video being like, yes, those issues exist and are real, which is a huge step up from the normal PragerU like, nah, fuck them, it's their fault, they're just black and degenerate or whatever. Like, all right, we've got an improvement at least.
was socioeconomic problems of the Arab world, but they hide the leaders' real motivations.
Oh, so now we're getting to conspiracism. Well, I notice she like just moves away from like, yeah, there are real concerns, and like, but I don't like that they were protesting them, even though they're like real concerns, because of a conspiracy she's about to make up. All right, hit us with it. What you got?
Their ideology goes by many names: social justice, critical race.
Imagine I wanting social justice. By the way, critical race theory is completely manufactured as a like boogeyman. There was I forget the guy's name, but like one guy has been open about, I'm gonna look for it. Uh, who uh all right, let's see if we can figure it out. Yeah, so Christopher Rufo has admitted. Hold on, maybe I'll see if his tweet. He has like a tweet where where he admits it. Okay, it doesn't seem to be in here. Uh, is this it? Yeah. Boom. We've successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category. So this guy, so like, I don't know how she doesn't know this. Chris Rufo is on record openly saying that this was always intended to be associate this with your brand, associate this with all the bad things, even though it's that has nothing to do with actual critical race theory, and just cement it as toxic in public perception. On record is saying this. There is nothing to this critical race theory idea. Critical race theory, for what it's worth, for anyone who doesn't know, is a concept taught in law schools. That's like the soonest you can really learn about it. Maybe more now that it's been more popularized and like in undergraduate programs might be like, well, we have to undo some of the damage people like this asshole have done. But um, like it's not like this boogeyman it was made out to be. It very specifically was invented to be that. Um, so she's bought into this shit, I guess.
Theory and intersectionality are just a few.
And yeah, and by the way, intersectionality, that's another thing. Like, if you just think it's a boogeyman, then maybe it sounds scary. But once you understand what it is, it's like wild that people lose their shit over it. As I understand it, intersectionality is just the idea that there are different forms of oppression that affect different people, and sometimes people exist at the intersection of those different kinds of oppression. So, for example, the easiest one uh, that like even someone who agrees with Prager you could understand is that in 1830 if you were a black woman, it's not just that you were black and therefore probably enslaved and had no access to the rights, but then but even if you were white, you also wouldn't be able to vote. You are at this intersection where there are compounding problems due to these different forms of oppression. That's all intersectionality is, by the way. As my understanding anyway. But no, we're gonna like spout it like a boogeyman, and we're putting it on stream without explanation because, well, obviously it's a PragerU audience. They already like hate the idea that people are agitating for justice.
For simplicity, I call it all wokeism.
Oh my god, you buy into the wokeism shit? Oh my god, like Ion, you're way better than this. Like, like your anti-Islamic bigotry has led you just down this horrendous rabbit hole. Like, really, what the fuck happened to you?
I'm not about to equate wokeism and Islamism.
You already did.
Islamism is a militant strain of an ancient faith.
And also wokeism is another like branding thing. Wokeism is not a term that anyone uses authentically for themselves. It is always ascribed to. It's never like, oh, I'm like a wokist. Nobody says that because because it's not a term that makes sense. Woke, the origins of that term go back a little bit and like being very different than how it's used now, and definitely nothing even resembling what the right says it means.
Its believers have a coherent sense of what Allah wants them to achieve on earth to earn rewards in the afterlife. Wokeism is just another version of Marxism. It's
not true at all, even though like a lot of people who are progressive are Marxist or communist or socialist. That's not like you could be for racial justice and not be a communist. Those are not related whatsoever. The fact is that a lot of people who are interested in racial justice tend to be interested in economic justice also, and so often are socialist or communist or Marxist or whatever. But no, that is not the same thing at all.
Corin's religion and the idea of an afterlife.
Again, oh, and by the way, Marxism does not scorn religion or the idea of an afterlife. In fact, I want to like put this to bed. So it's a very famous, very famous Marx quote that people take out of take out of context because it looks like it says Oh, because they always say, "Oh, he says religion is the opiate of the masses." Isn't that like really terrible? But maybe it's in here. Full quotation. Uh, Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. It is. This is not. This is not a rejection of religion outright. It is an understanding, at least in my view, that religion is multifaceted and it has value to people in a lot of ways that aren't just like is yes, it is often an opium for people, but it's also a sigh of the oppressed. It is a comfort. It is the heart in heartlessness. It is an attempt at solace when you have none. It is an understanding that religion means something to people and is valuable to them because it often is clung to in times of need. This is why it's a similar sentiment with it's a sentiment that you can see when people say there are no atheists in foxholes. Just saying like when you're really desperate, you'll cling to something like religion. That's not that's not like anti-religious in essence. It's an understanding even if you are opposed to religion. Yeah, it's one of those like I can understand as an atheist what religion means to people even if I'm not religious. And to just be like, "Oh, it's just yeah, this Marxism isn't anti-religious." But there's this like conflation because people like Stalin who in my opinion were not communist whatsoever uh, appeared as atheists to people in the West because people like Stalin attempted like a church of him basically. He was trying to deify himself. So yeah, he didn't like other religions, but that doesn't make him atheist, nor was he communist, nor is communism anti-religious or scornful of religion necessarily. I personally think the world would be better without religion, and the world would be better if as a socialist world, but those are not required. One does not require the other.
Wokeism divides society into myriad identities, whereas
Nope, 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 nope. Uh, Progressivism, which is what I'll use instead of wokeism, understands that people are divided by identities, that there are divisions that have been created, and oftentimes that need to be torn down. Things like you can like it's one thing to be like, oh, we're all colorblind, but then realizing that, well, no, like redlining is a thing that happens to black people, and that line is created irrespective of whether you think it exists or not, or whether it should exist. And understanding that, and understanding that like people are very opposed to, for example, gay rights or even trans people existing. Those identities exist, and there are lines drawn between people on the basis of those identities. That acknowledgement isn't prescriptive, it's observational. And by understanding those created divisions, we can seek to alleviate the tension between them, the harm done to certain groups, and to tear down when appropriate those divisions, which I think in most cases it would be appropriate to tear those down. That's actually what like a progressive I think would say, like, well, fuck it, I'm a progressive. That's what I would say, not the like that we ought to divide people into these myriad identities. Just understanding that there are divisions, and responding to that. This is the same kind of thing that people say, like, oh, look, anti-racists and racists both think that like races exist. Well, the racist thinks prescriptively they ought to exist and be defined, and people ought to be defined by them, whereas the anti-racist will say, I recognize that people do that, and I want to alleviate the damage that is done by that division. These are not the same.
Islamist division is simpler: believers and unbelievers. There are many other differences, but consider the resemblances.
Yeah. So remember her. She's like, I'm not going to try to compare them. Now now I'm going to say they're the same. Yeah.
The adherents of each pursue ideological purity, certain of their own rectitude.
So I don't exactly know what she means, in part because the language is so vague, and it has to be to conflate what progressives want and what like Islamic extremists want. When Islamic extremists want like ideological purity, she means like under Taliban rule, like if you don't follow the law, you'll like, you know, it's a crime and everyone has to believe and apostasy is punished and yada yada etc. And like progressives don't like racists and don't think they should have power. Sounds like you agree with her so far. Then she's dividing society. If she is against dividing society into identities, no, 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 no. Well, kind of. So I don't agree with her because she's claiming that progressives do this division. Progressives notice that the division exists, but to a lot of people on the right, because they want to ignore these kinds of harms and these divisions, as long as you don't talk about it, those divisions don't exist. So by acknowledging that they do, you've created them. In a way, she thinks that the divisions don't exist and I do, and to her that is creating those divisions. It's a kind of magical thinking. It's like this problem didn't exist until you said something about it. The way this happens all the time, actually. A good example I have for it is, you know, you're going about your day, and then someone tells you that like your friend Billy said something mean about you behind your back. If you have object permanence, as if you have that concept as one that functions in your brain, you can know that occurred when did Billy talk bad about me? That occurred in the past, elsewhere. But if you don't, if you fail in this way that a lot of people do, you can say, as far as you're concerned, he talked bad about you the moment your friend told you about it. Because before that moment, as far as you were concerned, it hadn't happened. And by telling you, you created the event as far as you're concerned. Even though it did happen elsewhere and things happen outside of your view. And this is the same kind of thing. If you are blind to this kind of to these kinds of divisions and harms that exist, when someone tells you they exist, it's to you that have been created at that moment. This is why people on the right claim that like they invented these problems, because they didn't think about it before, even though the problems existed, and it wasn't a problem for them before. But now you're making it their problem. You, in a sense, created it at that moment. You created that division. She didn't say anything about progressives though, just wokeists, whatever those are. So yeah, wokeists aren't a thing. That's why I keep saying progressives instead. Woke. There's no, like I said, nobody calls themselves a wokeist. There's no such thing as a wokeist. It's a pejorative label that the right tries to use to like to imply both to both demonize and to trivialize progressive ideas. There's a lot of ideas that I'm kind of wrapping up into each other, like progressivism, social justice theory, intersectionality, things like that. But like this is general wave of like left leaning. I mean, I guess I'd want to call it identity politics, but in like a positive way. Like, I would call it like progressivism or like social justice or something like that. These are effectively the same because she doesn't mean anything by wokeism. Woke is like what she means by wokeism is whoever the fuck she feels like calling a wokist. There's no such thing as a wokist except by pejorative. So she can just assign that label. That's why I'm talking about progressives. But like, no, there aren't these people these people don't exist, so they can't do the things she's claiming they do. The people that do exist don't do this, and also wouldn't call themselves wokists. I know it feels weird to like push back so hard on so simple a term, especially one that's so commonly used. But I think it's important to not accept the label.
Dude. Neither Islamists nor the woke will engage in debate.
So that's actively not true, especially now. There's a lot of people on the left who are willing to debate about these things. The problem is the right actually doesn't debate. They will they will act like they're debating, like they'll do a Steven Crowder change my mind, or a Ben Shapiro argues with college people in the audience, but that's not debate. That's grandstanding. The actual debates, there are actual debates that do happen, and more the left is willing and the right is unwilling. all good. It makes sense. It's just a convenient way to group people who you don't agree with. Yeah, I know. Peachy Keen, I hope it's clear. Like, even when I like get riled and like push back against what you say in chat, one, I very much appreciate it, and two, I understand often where you're coming from. I'm more responding so enthusiastically to the ideas. I don't mean to be like aggressive towards you. I get where you're coming from for sure.
Both prefer indoctrination of the submissive and damnation of those who resist.
So I don't really agree with this, but also there is like a subsect of people who are like, oh, you can never, like, who do the damnation thing of like, you can never, like, there's no reform once you were a Nazi, that's it, you can't do anything good anymore. I don't really buy into that. I do like the idea of people being able to change and better, but like indoctrination is also incredibly loaded. If I talk to you and I convince you of ideas, is that indoctrination? I guess in a way, but it's a really sinister way of putting it to prefer indoctrination, and like it sounds really sinister, even though it's just like, well, I've convinced you of these good ideas. Um, but also the left is actually kind of notorious for not doing the indoctrination thing. One of the things that people have had to push back on are things like it's not my job to educate you as a sentiment, which is like that's the opposite of indoctrination. So like it's kind of weird how it's like no, it would be good if like that did happen and it doesn't. And like up to the submissive is very weird. Yeah, that's not true at all. Like this is one of those like it's some parts are true for for one side but not the other and vice versa. Yeah, this is just not true.
The two ideologies have distinctive rituals. Islamists shout Allahu Akbar and death to America. The woke shout Black Lives Matter, and I can't.
You can't be this stupid. You can't be this stupid. Do you really not understand that the slogan isn't inherently bad? Like, look, the right has distinctive rituals. They chant "lock her up" and "build the wall." It's just a slogan. Slogans are a thing. Slogans are a thing. Are you really this dumb? Like, okay.
Breathe. Islamists pray to Mecca. The woke take the knee.
Nope. Yep. She's that dumb. Holy fuck. That's insane. Um, there is a distinct difference between a religious ritual, which, by the way, not Islamists aren't the only people who do that, by the way. Also, just Muslims, right? Like when she says Islamist, she means like Muslim extremists, think people like the Taliban or whatever, right? And remember, like there are Muslims in the U.S. who don't do this, who aren't extremists, but they do pray. Like that's fine. And by the way, they don't have slogans like "Death to America." That's not ubiquitous there. So you have to be talking about the extremists, to which like that's not the only people who do this. Additionally, it's not an inherently bad thing to have a ritual. Rituals are a thing. Like every religion has rituals. That's fine. Non-religious things have rituals. Have you ever been to a baseball game? There's the seventh inning stretch. Every sports game in the country has the American anthem. Is that not like a ritual? It's not bad to have a ritual. Also, well, the knee wasn't just one guy. It expanded beyond that guy, but also it's like it was good. It was a good thing. He was doing protest. That's a legal right we have in this country. It's good when we use it. And for all the people who like complain about like even when I was at my most, you have to protest the right way kind of mindset, which I don't so much agree with anymore. This is clearly the right way to protest. It's non-violent. It gets eyes on you. And by the way, in case anyone forgot, when it's taking the knee is not disrespectful. If you kneel before, for example, a monarch, nobody gets mad at you. In fact, it's expected. This is not. It's just ridiculous. Wait a minute. Westerners take the knee to make marriage propositions. We're all woke. Yeah, exactly. This is fucking nonsense. That's what I mean. Like that's why when I saw this, I was just like, oh no, she is that dumb. Okay, I guess she's just this stupid
Both like
or
burning
that
the
dishonest.
American
I'll give her the choice, but this seems just that stupid.
flag.
Burning the American flag is a fucking right. Like this was like established by American law. It's in fact a distinctly American act in that it's in that. Oh, sorry, not American law. Well, it's protected by the First Amendment, but that was a Supreme Court case that determined that. It wasn't like a law that says that included specifically that caveat. Just saying that is included. That is a protected act of free speech. Remember how she was mad about free speech a second ago? Yeah, it's a distinctly American act to burn the flag. We're allowed to do that here. Isn't that kind of cool? You're not allowed to do that. Well, I don't know about how many countries don't allow you to do that, but definitely in like feudal countries, you are not allowed to do that, and we get to. That isn't that kind of cool? We have that right to do this. And why shouldn't we? It only bothers people like you who are like, "Oh God, I don't give a shit if someone burns the flag. Who cares? It's a flag. It's cloth. If someone burns their T-shirt, do you get upset? No. It's just about what it symbolizes when you attach that symbol. But I don't care. Like I don't care about the symbol. I care about the thing. And if someone wants to burn the flag, I don't give a shit. Like if an Islamic extremist burns the American flag, I would not care. But if they, kill people, I do care, irrespective of who those people are. Uh, and so like yeah, it's kind of weird to like push back against it. Like, couldn't you just not give a shit? As in recommend. Oh, sorry. American tradition always has a tattered flag that can be raised anymore to be burned. Oh, I didn't actually. I think I've heard that before, but I'd forgotten. Yeah. Apparently, tattered flags are supposed to be burned. That's how you're supposed to get rid of it. Yeah, you get rid of it. But like, honestly, the biggest problem I have with burning the flag now as an act of protest is it's played out. Like it's I guess some people still find it shocking, but it's not like creative or interesting. It's just inflammatory. um, but not in a way that necessarily like gets interesting versions of attention. You can do it if you want. I don't care. But in fact, it's like kind of cool that we get to do it. Fuck it. Like America should have like every year on 4th of July, you do your barbecue or whatever, and then you fucking burn a flag because that's our goddamn right. Um, that's America, baby. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
Both take offense at every opportunity and
That's
demand not just
not true at
apologies
all.
but concessions.
That's not true at all.
Islamism invades against blasphemy. Wokeism wants to outlaw hate.
So first of all, progressives are pretty divided as to whether hate speech should be disallowed. But like, um, are you like pro hate speech? Or are you like, yeah, that like, nah, hate speech is cool actually. Like, I'm cool. I think people should be allowed to blaspheme. I think people shouldn't do hate speech. I don't know if it should be illegal. I don't think. I go back and forth, and I lean usually towards no. It probably should not be illegal. Um, but like, are you cool with hate speech? Or are you just like, yeah, hell yeah, scream the N word? Are you cool with that? Is that a thing you like?
Hate speech. Islamists use the word Islamophobia to silence critics.
No. Actually, Muslim extremists are pretty unlikely to use Islamophobia as a term. The people who use it are progressives when they notice your obvious Islamophobia. As it turns out, that term has relevant use and meaning.
The woke do the same with racism.
But yeah, it's not to silence opponents. It's to acknowledge when those things are real, which they are. And notice like this kind of presentation kind of assumes that there's never an appropriate time to use those terms. And if you're using it at all, it's only to silence people. But what if someone's fucking racist, man? Like, am I silencing my opposition when I say that David Duke is racist? Former Grand Wizard of the KKK. When I say that guy is racist, is that like silencing opposition, or is that acknowledging the fact? Just in the same way, there are racists who aren't as willing to, who aren't as open as being literal Klan members, and you can acknowledge that fact openly by saying the word out loud about them. That's how that works actually. But you're like, nah, it's silencing people to acknowledge that when they are racist.
Both ideologies aim to tear down the existing system.
So tearing down existing systems isn't necessarily bad. Just as a note, for example, there was this existing system of slavery, and that got torn down. I think that's pretty good, actually. I like that. That's a thing I like. That slavery as an existing system got torn down. In fact, my biggest issue is it wasn't torn down enough. We still have too much of it. That's good, actually. Trying to do something like this is another instance of like taking issue with the principle when it's the specifics that we should be talking about. I don't like tearing down existing systems to like put into place theocratic dictatorships. I don't like that. That's a bad thing, I think. But I think tearing down like a system of like racism would be good. I think it would be good if racism as a system was done away with and replaced with ideally racial abolition, uh, but barring that racial equality at a minimum. I think that's good actually, and to to assume those are the same things that are stupid. I know she's gonna go on to say
and
it
replace it
says
with
with the utopias, but like what is see this is this really weird thing that I see a lot of people do is they act like you can't determine the difference between a good thing and a bad thing. Like yeah, they want to replace it with their idealized version of what society should look like, but that idea is bad though. Now you want to say they're both bad, but you're not going to talk about what would make a like a progressive's view of what society should be. You're not going to explain why that's bad. You're just going to associate it with theocratic dictatorship and go, see, they're both trying to change the world. Isn't that bad?
utopias that
The,
always
always,
turn out to be hellish anarchy.
so when you say always turn out, that's really interesting because when did progressives ever actually replace an existing system? Like actually replace an existing system with their view of how things should be. Chaz, as is represented on the left, is not that. Chaz was not a replacement to a system. It was kind of larpy. It was just like we kept they I shouldn't say we. I wasn't part of that. They kept the police out of an area for a little bit. That's not what that is.
Islamic.
And by the way, as I understand it, Chaz was just whatever. It wasn't hellish. It was just meh. Also, anarchy. By the way, Islamists don't want to create anarchy. Anarchy. So this is this is a problem. Anarchy has come to mean lawlessness, but that is not what anarchists want. But that said, Islamic extremists like ISIS don't want lawlessness. They're actually very opposed to lawlessness. They want their set of laws. Anarchists do want a freedom from a system without leaders, or sorry, without monarchs, without leaders, without rulers, without people with inordinate power. ISIS doesn't want that. They want to be the ones with power. This is like this conflation of like, no, these are not the same. It's like even in your concept, that's not what that is. Like anarchy cannot be meaningfully like even if you use anarchy to mean lawlessness, that cannot be used to describe what people like ISIS want or groups like ISIS want. That's nowhere near like that should be dishonest even to you.
State in Raqqa, the Capitol Hill Authority.
And like the absolute state of saying this Islamic state is anarchist. Anarchists and state are opposites. Like that makes no sense.
Autonomous zone in Seattle.
In the capital, I don't want to get into the Chaz.
A collectivist.
So collectivist is another term that means actual nothing because people will contrast that with individualist, but like when we talk about groups of people, like when we talk about a country, how do you approach it individualistically? Like you go to each individual person, like here are the rules that govern you? No, you say like here are the laws that apply collectively, and like these groups are like these are how we apply things to people, and oh there's a contradiction, there's a conflict between what's good for one person and what's good for these million people. Should the individualist say we should prefer the one person because it's good for that? Because otherwise you'd be collectivist, you'd going for the group. It's nonsense. It means nothing. Yeah, both these group of people are trying to make assumptions about
Identity trumps the individual.
Yeah, so this is like nobody says this, by the way. Like this doesn't. Nobody says this because it doesn't mean anything. So like, okay, sure,
Both tolerate and often glorify violence carried out by zealots.
So by the way, everybody likes violence. I don't hate, if this is news to you, you go and learn today. Everybody likes violence. You might think you don't, but you do. For example, let's say someone is is going around murdering people. There's a serial killer. We'll talk about like Buffalo Bill from Psycho, or like, I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer, better example, going around killing people. I think personally that there should be like some violence done in capturing that person and then taking them to court. And that's actually a pretty violent act, because if they resist too much, like, they will be beaten or killed. I personally think that that is better than letting them do whatever. Everyone's in favor of violence in some ways. It's about what kinds of violence and for what ends that you are okay with. As it turns out, well, one of the issues with like liberalism as an ideology is that it accepts only that the state is allowed to do violence. Every act of violence by the state is acceptable, and no acts of violence not done by the state are acceptable. But well, maybe not no acts of violence, because it still makes allowances for things like self-defense or whatever. But like, there are acceptable levels of violence for everything that we have to moderate based on the circumstance. Obviously, equating a baseball bat and a Molotov cocktail with literal weapons of war in missiles is not the same fucking thing. And people like this are often like super cool with really unreasonable violence that the police will do to protesters, irrespective of what they're up to. There's that like really famous clip during the BLM protests. Well, there were a lot of them, but there's one in particular where the guy is like standing, like, as the police are approaching him, and they're like, push him back, and they just push him over and they crack his skull open. Like, is that cool? Are you cool with that? Oh, I guess the U.S. the police are just like Islamic extremists. True and based though. But obviously people like this are like cool with that, because the people that are having the violence done against them want like racial equality and racial justice. So like, fuck them, I guess.
The grievances of Islamists and the woke aren't merely economic, and they won't be satisfied with jobs or entitlements or any other blandishments.
Correct. Progressives will not be placated with just like, oh, okay, like, what if I hired like three of you? Yeah, because that doesn't solve the problem of racism. It doesn't solve the problems of police brutality and accountability. Like, no, they won't be placated. Wow, that's so awful. But that's not the same thing as like, we will only like ISIS, who will only accept their totalitarian rule.
Politicians are willing to offer.
Are willing to offer. Maybe they should be willing to offer. Okay.
Their motivations are ideological, and they'll be satisfied
Yes.
only with power.
Yeah. So again, we have this ability with the concept of ethics to determine the difference between good things and bad things. So
Their
our motivations are ideological. Yes. But there are ideologies that are good. And I know you believe that because you believe there are ideologies that are bad and are less preferable to the ones you hold. Your motivations are also ideological. You seem to like liberal democracy. That is an ideological preference. And you are ideologically motivated to support that. Does that make you only satisfied with power and this evil, terrible person who's just like the Islamic extremists? Yes, in your case it does, but not in general. In fact, as it turns out, having an ideological be motivated towards the ideology of equality and justice are not evil, terrible things. And in fact, people on the left are much less interested in power than people on the right. In fact, leftism has anarchism as a concept is specifically about the deconstruction of power, the evening out of power amongst the people, maximizing egalitarianism, in that no one has more power than another. A precept, by the way, of democracy, the thing that allegedly you like, but maybe, I don't know, maybe your association with PragerU makes me a little less certain about that.
Logical, and they'll be satisfied only with power, and then they'll demand more power.
No,
I
no,
click
no. That see like that last part is actively false. But you've already like conflated. You've already done the thing you said you wouldn't do of conflating Islamic extremists with wokeists. So now you can get away with saying whatever you want. Like if it applies to one, then you can apply it to everything.
to the hope that most Americans are still willing to fight and, if necessary,
Yeah, we should desperately fight to uphold racism. Yeah, I am Ayan Hirsi Ali, and I think that's good. Like, okay, you
to
got it.
die to preserve our freedoms, our rights, our
What
customs.
what freedoms, rights, and customs? What is being allegedly taken away because you were disinvited from speaking from a honorary degree at Brandeis? Cry more.
Our history. That was the spirit of Flight 93.
Flight 93, famously anti-progressive.
We need to
Fucking
summon
moron.
that spirit again. I'm Ayan Hirsi Ali, research fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford for
So, okay, now I'm curious. Why? Uh, 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 from. Okay, this is probably not autofilling based on the full idea. Okay. Um, I think I spelled Brandeis correct. Nope, I did not. All right. Why was she disinvited? I'm curious, and then we'll finish off with this. Can you? All right. Well, I guess we're not going to read that. All right. I guess I'll just read the whole thing. A university has reversed a decision to grant an honorary degree to an advocate for Muslim women who has made comments critical of Islam. Brandeis University said in a statement that Somali-born Ayan Hirsi Ali would no longer receive the honorary degree, which it had planned to award her at the May 18th commencement. Ali, a member of the Dutch Parliament from 2003 to 2006, and I think she was, I could have sworn she also held government office in the United States as well, but I could be mistaken, has been quoted as making comments critical of Islam. This includes a 2007 interview with Reason magazine in which she said of the religion, "Once it's defeated, it can mutate into something peaceful. It's very difficult to even talk about peace now. They are not interested in peace. I think we're at war with Islam and there's no middle ground in wars." So like this this first part I think is highly defensible. I think it's pretty reasonable to say like there are very militant sects of Islam and it's hard to and like this mutation to something peaceful, like this is reformist sentiment that a lot of people share, but to say like it's a war and there's no middle ground, this is where I really do think she has like some anti-Islamic bigotry, because like when you're talking about a war, you don't like try to change people's mind, you bomb them. Brandeis, outside Boston and Waltham, Massachusetts, said it was not aware of Ali's statements earlier. She is a compelling public figure and advocate for women's rights, which is great, and we respect and appreciate her work, hell yeah, to protect and defend the rights of women and girls throughout the world. Yeah, said the university's statement. That said, we cannot overlook certain of her past statements that are inconsistent with Brandeis University's core values. Hey, look at that. They just don't think they just disagree with her values, and so they disinvited her. What's the big deal? No, it's an attack on free speech. They didn't invite me. Even though the university withdrawing the honorary degree, quote, Ali is welcome to join us on campus in the future to engage in dialogue about these important issues, the statement said. Oh, so literally, like, not just disinvited from the camp, literally only disinvited from the degree, but she's welcome on campus. What? In what way was your free speech violated? You fucking snowflake. Holy shit. Ali was raised in a strict Muslim family. Okay, I don't care about it. Like, I get that. Okay, well, we'll get to it. I guess it's the only background. Was raised in a strict Muslim family, but after surviving a civil war, genital mutilations, beating, and an arranged marriage, she renounced the faith in her 30s. She declined to comment this week to the Associated Press. Um, in 2007, Ali helped establish the AHA Foundation, which works to protect and defend the rights of women in the West from opposition justified by religion and culture, according to the website. So, by the way, this is literally progressivism. Is she a wokist? This is literally like this would literally be a progressive. Like this, you could even you'd probably be more accurate to call it a feminist, uh, a feminist motion action. Is she a wokist? The foundation also strives to protect basic rights and freedom of women and girls. Wow, that's so wokist of you. I guess you're the same as those Muslim extremists. This includes control of their own bodies, access to an education, the ability to work outside the home, and to control their own income, the website says. Wow, I can't believe she's such a wokist. That's crazy. More than 85 of about 350 faculty members at Brandeis signed a letter asking for Ali to be booted off the list of honorary degree recipients. And an online petition why is this two sentences? And an online petition created Monday by students at the school of 5800 had gathered thousands of signatures from inside and outside the university as of Tuesday afternoon. Again, this is what I mean. Like, these people are also exercising their right to free speech. We signed a letter asking for a thing. We got a bunch of people who agree with us. The university was completely free to change its mind or not. It did, and that is the right. It's right, the right of those people who made the decision to use their free speech in that way. She has no entitlement. No, they are not obligated whatsoever to keep her on their list of honorary degree recipients. Like, for real, what is this entitlement? Like, we're talking about entitlement culture. Like, what the hell is this? I deserve this from you. You have to give it to me, and it's a violation of my free speech if you don't. Okay, buddy. This is a real slap in the face to Muslim students. What? Senior Sarah Fahmy, a member of the Muslim Student Association, created a petition. Said, okay. Of Ali being invited there. Okay. Yeah, because she's like pretty clearly Islamophobic, right? I think it was even clear in that video. Bernard Macy, a 1979 Brandeis graduate, sent an email this week to University President Frederick Lawrence and several members of the faculty saying, "Thank you for recognizing Ayaan Hirsi Ali for defending Muslim women against Islamic honor violence." But Ibrahim Hooper, a spokesman for the Council on American Islamic Relations and the nation's largest Muslim advocacy group, said it is unconscionable that such a prestigious university would honor someone with such openly hateful views. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I want you to put this in the context of something a little more obvious. Like, if Brandeis University at first was like, oh, I don't know who this David Duke guy is. Let's offer him an honorary degree. He seems cool. And then people were like, no, the guy's literally former Grand Wizard of the KKK. Like, maybe not. Don't do that. And then they rescinded it. Would this be a violation of his free speech rights? Would this be censorship? Would this be Brandeis having done something wrong by rescinding that? Would they be required to allow him there? And would it be silencing him for people to speak out and be like, hey, but for real, this is who this person is? And that seems kind of at odds with the values of this university. I think in that case, it'd be pretty obvious why this is ridiculous, and I think it's indistinguishable. The organization sent a letter to. I mean, it's distinguishable in the sense that, like, she's not literally a former member of a hate group, but she's clearly very bigoted. The organization sent a letter to Lawrence on Tuesday requesting that it drop its plans to honor Ali. So they sent a letter requesting something. The horror. The absolute horror. I don't know if we can live in a country where people are allowed to send letters making requests. At what point will we have lost all of the things that we value? This makes Muslim students feel very uneasy, Joseph Lombard, chairman of Islamic and Middle Eastern Studies, said in an earlier interview. They feel unwelcome here. And that's where it ends. That's a really weird place to end it. But okay, like, yeah, is cuz you're a bigot? Maybe do something about that. They're not required to give you any honorary degrees. If they were, Brandeis, hey, send me one too. Hook me up. I'm at least not a bigot, right? And if you don't, by the way, someone send this to anyone at Brandeis. If you don't send me an honorary degree, apparently that's a violation of my free speech rights, and that's pretty messed up when you think about it. So Maybe we should do something about that. Whew, all right. Well, I enjoyed PragerU Day. Did you enjoy PragerU Day, chat? I hope you did. Uh, we'll definitely come back to more of these. Oh, I have to know what they. I was just gonna like save a random one to to come back to. It's not that random, but I had a good time. Didn't you, chat? Um, wow. That last one in particular was something else. But I think that'll do it for today. I'm pretty likely to be unable to stream tomorrow. If I do, we'll figure out what we're up to. I saw more stuff on the watch later list. Maybe we'll get to some of that. We'll see. Any case, I'll catch you all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if you don't like and comment and subscribe and tell your friends, that's a violation of my free speech. Anything short of that would be a violation of my free speech, because it's my right to be heard by as many people as possible, and if I'm not, then you're hurting me and we're sacrificing our American values. So be sure to do all of that. Otherwise, are you really for freedom of speech? But thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.